Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are excited to share our special guest with us today, and her name is Michele Reyes. She is a mother of seven and a master certified life coach with advanced training in nervous system resilience. She is the creator of Made for More, a 12-week program where she teaches her signature framework, the intentionality method. Michele helps women of faith move from being reactionary into intentional through grounding practices, mindset work anchored in faith. She loves quiet early morning walks and dancing in the living room with her kids. Michele and her husband Kyle are raising their family in Vineyard, Utah, where, yes, the house is often a mess, but that's the point. She believes you can show up messy and still be intentional and create a life you love. Welcome, Michele. We are so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Um, do you want to start out by our listeners getting to know you a little bit more on a personal level and how you came to be in this area of work? Something must have drawn you to this. Do you want to tell us a little more about you and why you're doing the work that you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fun to continue with life and to look in retrospect how your path has led you to where you're at.
Agree.
So it's wonderful. And I grew up with a single mom and with a large family as well. There were seven in my
Oh, wow.
family growing up, and then I ended up having seven children of my own. And from the time that I was young, I have always wanted to put myself out there and show up and do good and be good. And it's fun how different phases of my life have allowed me to do that.
Hmm.
Motherhood was always something that I looked forward to, and in my early motherhood years, I became a business owner early on, partly because not because I thought that I wanted to do a business, but because I wanted to create the life that I wanted. And that partly entailed running this photography business, which was my first business.
Ah,
And it gave me a sense of purpose, a creative outlet. And that just led to the next business opportunity and eventually to coaching. And everything that I have been a part of has had this kind of same vein of let's make a life full of joy and purpose and fulfillment. And currently, I coach women of faith who are looking to learn tools to help them live life more fully, more intentionally. Intentionality is one of my favorite ideas and principles, and something that I base my whole coaching program off of. And really, it's stepping into that creator mode, using your ability to create whatever it is that you want in your life, and using some of these tools of mindset and nervous system resilience to create that. And a lot of it has to do with understanding yourself and who you are and having this sense of awareness so that you can step into that creator mentality and create what you want. So, while I've kind of done a lot of different things in my adult life, it all streamlines into let's live a life of joy and purpose. So it's been fun.
That's so interesting that you bring up that word purpose because
Mhm.
in our program at Real Food Recovery, one of our areas of focus, our four main branches or our four main cornerstones are food or single ingredient food,
Mhm.
movement,
Love it.
sleep, and
Love it.
spirituality. So those are the four cornerstones. But there's several other supporting principles with that, and purpose is a big one. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning, right? And if
Right.
you have purpose, you're a lot less likely to be numbing out life with food or whatever substance, right? If
Mhm.
you've got to
Yeah.
drive, you got a little bit of a fire in your belly, don't you think, if you have
Right.
purpose?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, what motivates you to get up in the morning?
Right. And I think purpose can only come when you have clarity of of your worth, of what serves you, what doesn't serve you. When we're talking about some of those four cornerstones that you mentioned,
Hmm.
I love all of them because
Hmm.
understanding each of those, understanding how your body affects your mind and your mind affects your body. And, if we're trying to show up as that better version of ourselves and have that purpose, we need to have understanding and clarity in these other areas.
I agree. And I think the mind gets muddled. Like, obviously, food is
Mhm.
a big one for us. If you're uh, in that addictive mode of living off
Mhm.
those processed food, you don't have full access to your brain
Right,
and you can't tap into your true authentic self. If you don't have if you haven't slept well, if you don't
right.
have some type of spiritual foundation, and by the way, when we talk about spirituality at Real Food Recovery, we're not saying you have to go to church. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having a place where you can turn to when life
Right,
kicks you in the teeth, that you're turning to a place of peace instead of substance use. You're turning inward to
right.
solve whatever ails you versus to outward substances. If you haven't got all those things, it's very difficult to really tap into that true authentic self because you're mired in distractions that
Mhm.
keep you from really tapping in deeply to who you authentically are and want to be and what fulfills you most. So,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important to learn different principles and tools to help you better access that higher level of thinking. And again, it begins with that awareness. And then
mhm.
now what? Where do we go from there? What do we need? How do we show up? How do we shift that and change and show up a little differently? So, yeah.
You have talked about intentionality a few times already, which I love, which to me that looks like slow, purposeful movements with a
Mhm.
design, not just random helter-skelter.
Yeah.
I'm going to react and do whatever popped into my brain at that
Right.
instance. But you help people move from that being reactionary to intentional. What does
Mhm.
that shift actually look like in everyday life for people that are listening? They may go, I don't,
Yeah.
those words sound nice, but I don't really know what that exactly looks
Yeah.
like. So, do you
Yeah.
want to break it down in simple terms for people
Yeah,
that are listening?
absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I get passionate about teaching people because I do think intentionality is kind of this ideal and this abstract thing that we think, okay, how do I actually do that in my life?
Hmm.
And it really does begin with understanding who we are as humans. And that's where understanding the nervous system comes into play. Because if we're not aware of these, what I call protective patterns, because your nervous system is meant to protect you, it's meant to keep you
Yeah.
safe and keep you alive. And if we're not aware of that, we move into that reactionary mode rather than responding. And so, really, that's kind of the goal of learning the tools that I teach is that instead of being reactive, you respond because we can't nor do we want to control everything outside of us. We can't control our circumstances. And so
Yeah.
we do have to respond to things, but rather than being reactionary, that really is the goal to be responsive instead. And so it's first understanding where your nervous system is at. What might be putting you into fight mode or flight mode or freeze mode, and understanding what it's trying to protect you from
Hmm.
and then being able to answer it, being able to learn how to reestablish that sense of safety. So then your higher level of thinking comes back on because when you are activated, when your nervous system is activated, then that, just like you were saying earlier, that higher level of thinking goes offline or becomes limited in access. And so we can't choose thoughts that are going to serve us or help us be more intentional. So it begins with that grounding, that establishing of safety. And then when we are able to access our higher level of thinking, it's what thoughts am I choosing? What am I choosing to believe that's showing up in my life? Because what we think, we manifest in our results in what we create. So being able to answer the thoughts that naturally come to our brains, whether it's doubt or worry or fear, having the tools to be able to answer that and then decide, okay, this is what I want. This is how I want to show up. This is the person I want to become. And so you mentioned kind of a slowing down, and that really is what it is creating some space to again, not react, but respond and decide what does fulfillment and purpose and joy look like for me, not what the world is telling me should be or someone else or my neighbor or anyone, my family even. It's what makes sense for me and what does that look like? And then building it, working towards that, right?
Yeah, and I love what you're talking about when we teach people about nervous system regulation. The
Hmm.
first thing that we have to do is to calm ourselves down before we can get back to that frontal lobe thinking. Do you have a step in there that you have found foolproof that seems to work easy, accessible
Hmm.
for anyone that's activated that they can start to settle themselves?
Yes. And, we could learn about the nervous system for, people get their PhD in it, and you could learn
Right.
to such a great extent. But I think
Mhm.
just for the everyday person, you can do something I call a right now reset. That's when
Yes.
you're in the moment and you
Hmm.
notice that, oh, something's happening here. This circumstance happened and I'm feeling like I'm ready to fight or flee. And it's just 3 steps, and it's easy to remember with 3 R's. The first is just what I started talking about to recognize, even just having that awareness. Oh, I'm
Agree.
activated. It's my
I
body
agree.
protecting me. So, and that's
Hmm.
just a simple step rather than moving straight into whatever your reaction is, but to slow it down by saying, oh, I know what's happening here. My body is trying to protect me. And then, because the nervous system is a two-way communication between the brain and the body and the brain, we're going to employ both a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. And those are the next 2 steps. So the top-down approach is simply reminding yourself. So that's the second R, remind. So first we recognize I'm activated, and then we remind ourselves I'm safe. My body's just trying to protect me. I can hold myself through this. Just that
Yeah.
assurance from the brain to the body, and then the body communicates back to the brain with the final R, which is just I just use the word relax. But what I want you to do is take a long inhalation in, a cleansing breath is what I call it, not only in your lungs, but also in your diaphragm, and then
Hmm.
focusing on a longer exhalation out. And I purposely don't add, any numbers or any counting. Like we're
Yeah.
not going to be trying to activate that. We're keeping this as simple as possible, right? So all you have
Yeah.
to remember is cleansing breath, longer exhalation out. And in that long exhalation out, you relax your muscles, your tension, wherever in your body. Because when you move into that fight or flight, your body is literally activated with added energy to prepare you. And so if you can relax it, it sends the message back to your brain, yes, we are actually safe. It's okay. And then you reset, and then you decide, where do I want to go from here? How do I want to show up? Do I need to leave the room? Do I need to, just say something calm? What is my next step? But you create that pause, that reset, that right
Hmm.
now reset, so that you can bring that higher level of thinking back on, so that you can show up the way that you want to.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that works like all the time. Do you practice that?
Mhm.
Do you
And
find it just
yeah, and even just throughout the day, you get in the car before you pull out of the driveway, you just do a quick right now reset, because the
hmm
more that you establish that calm, and it's amazing how much tension we just carry throughout the day,
right.
even if we're not, you know, having someone yelling at us or opening up an email that disrupts us, we just carry that. And so the more that you can do that right now reset, just come back to calm, come back to grounding, and you're able to show up a lot better that way.
It's interesting because I think this nervous system regulation is such a huge conversation that
Mhm.
should be used in all areas of health and wellness.
I
And
agree.
you really don't see it like if you go to the doctor's office, they aren't going to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Or if we are getting more into it with food addiction recovery because really I think I'm shifting a little more towards nervous system regulation versus food addiction because I think once you can establish that nervous system regulation,
Mhm.
everything else just falls into place, and including your food. Why do you think that we aren't talking about that as much as we should in just the overall health and wellness field?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when people hear it initially, they think, okay, nervous system, that probably has to do in fight, flight, or freeze. That probably has to do with trauma and, big, people that need healing to some great degree, when really anyone can benefit from understanding our human wiring. And even when, your child says something small, your nervous system might be activated. It's not like you have a big quarrel, but just understanding that the nervous system is always at play. And
Yeah.
the more that we understand it and we can strengthen it and work with it and support it, the better we're going to be able to show up. So I think it's maybe just misunderstanding of its importance and where it can actually have place. And really, it can have place in everyone's life. Learning, teaching our children how to co-regulate or regulate themselves, like all of this, it really becomes such a powerful way of understanding the bodies that God created for us. So
Hmm.
I
I
love.
agree. I have a daughter who teaches her 7-year-old, take a breath, just
Mhm.
take a breath or take 3 breaths.
Yeah.
And I've noticed like when she's getting ready to perform something at school or
Mhm.
uh, anything like that, I see her just
Yeah.
we acted out the Christmas story at Christmas and she was the angel and I saw her before we
Cute.
start over there taking her deep breaths.
Yeah, so cute. That's
But
that's another
great,
thing
right?
I like to teach and point out. I think a lot of times, especially when you start learning about the nervous system, it becomes almost this villain where it's like, that's the reason I'm in trouble because my nervous system is acting up. And you know, recognizing it goes into dysregulation. Well, your nervous system is also wired to regulate. That's why we do have certain tendencies as, we take a deep breath on our own every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
but understanding it's working, it can work for us, not against us.
Hmm.
It's not something to be villainized or overcome. It's something to be appreciated and supported. And that's when we really see the benefits of it.
Yeah, can't you like almost point out when you see people that are dysregulated? Can't you go, okay, that guy needs to take some breaths?
Yeah.
What does that
Well,
look like to you? I mean, can you spot it?
I can, and I can think of a perfect example. But
Please.
here's my favorite part about understanding the nervous system, and just its overarching effort is for us to feel safe,
That's right.
and
Our number
and
one need.
and honestly, it has created so much compassion within me for myself and for others. And so when I see people dysregulated, it's not like, oh, I feel bad for him. Look at what's going on. He's in fight. I'm like, oh, I wonder what feels unsafe to him. Why does he
Hmm.
feel the need to show up this way? Or why does she?
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be.
Hmm.
And so it actually creates a lot of compassion and understanding
I
for
love
why
that.
people show up the way that they do.
I love that because you understand how painful it is to be in
Mhm.
that frenetic,
Yeah.
anxious, but it all boils down to safety. I mean, that's our number one need is to feel
Yes.
our autonomic nervous system is scanning
Right. Yep.
continually for safe. I mean, that's its job. It's working the
Yes.
room at all
Yes.
times to make sure you're not too hot, you're not too cold, you're not too hungry, you're not too full. I mean, everything that
Yes.
you feel comfortable around the people you're
Mhm.
around, I mean, you're surround everything. So
Yeah.
it's busy. It's
Yeah.
very, very busy. And so I love that correlation between compassion and noticing people when they're dysregulated. And you know what? They're not a lot of fun to be around. And I'm
Mhm.
sure they don't even like being around themselves, but they can't figure out how to get away from themselves.
Yeah.
And they haven't figured out how to settle themselves
Yeah.
down. You know, you were talking about, I think you were indicating like before you get ready to drive your car, just settling yourself down. Can you imagine if every driver out there on the road was a little bit calmer in their
Yeah.
nervous system regulation? We probably have less wrecks and less road rage.
For sure. Yeah. And recognizing it in others as well as in ourselves. I think again, it just creates a little bit of space so that we're not mirroring the emotion, mirroring the reaction. We can slow it down long enough that we can decide, okay, what do I want to do here? How do I want to respond?
Hmm.
Do I want to engage? Do I want to disengage, move somewhere else? It just, to me, creates a greater ability to choose intentionally how you want to show up in any particular situation.
Yeah. And don't you agree that in order to make real change, reach our goals, first of all, you have to feel safe and
Mhm.
grounded. You have
Yes.
to be in that headspace to be able to make real change. So
Yes.
if you have someone coming to you and saying, I don't feel safe in my body, is there a place that you start with them?
Yeah. Well, and that feeling of unsafety, because when it comes to if you're regulated, that's when you feel safe. And if you've been activated, and here's the thing about the nervous system, it initially activates you into fight or flight,
Right.
but as a preserving mechanism, it will put you down into freeze if you've been up there too long.
Right.
And if
It's
we've
exhausting.
lived in those spaces for extended period of times, it's interesting how even being regulated doesn't feel safe. You might think of the person
Right.
who is a go, go, go person, and when they're
Hmm.
able to slow down, they're like, oh, something's wrong. I can't do this. Right. And so what it becoms is first recognizing where home base is you,
Oh, I love
excuse me,
that.
where home base is for you,
Hmm.
and then being able to establish safety within regulation. And you're not going to do that just straight away. It's almost like it was described to me as, if you your whole life you wore, just black clothing, and then one day you're like, okay, it's time to put on some color here. You wouldn't put on, fuchsia hibiscus flowered dress or something like that, right? You'd stay what you are used to, but maybe put on like a little pink scarf or something, or add some. And so it's just slowly adding to establishing that safety. So it really is small shifts so that your body doesn't reject what that feeling of safety that you're trying to establish for it. And it could be just like we were talking about, just deep breaths throughout the day, reminding yourself it's okay to pause, it's okay to slow down, talking to yourself essentially,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
reminding yourself that it's okay, and also
Yeah.
allowing those feelings, because with each activation or deactivation comes feelings, right? In fight or flight, you get irritated or frustrated or worried, whatever it is. Those feelings are messengers, and if we can receive the message, it can process through us, and we can remind it it's okay. So allowing it is also a portion of that. It's not stuffing down those emotions or trying to like
Hmm.
quickly switch around to
Hmm.
a different emotion. It could be a level of just allowing. It's okay that it doesn't feel safe to slow down. I'm going to feel that worry or unsettled feeling in my chest. I'm just going to feel it, relax into it, remind myself it's safe. So it really is reestablishing that relationship with your body if you feel that disconnect.
I love that. And I've been practicing that a lot lately. Like if an emotion comes up, I'll say, "Oh, that's interesting, Paige. Let's talk about why you might feel that. Tell me more. What's going on? Let's
Yeah.
just talk about
Yeah.
that." I might be driving in my car and people
Yeah.
are
Oh
wondering
my
why
goodness.
are her lips moving.
No, curiosity, my two favorite serving emotions as you do work of shifting and becoming is curiosity and compassion. They're like the
Totally.
two super emotions. Curiosity is beautiful because it opens you up to understanding and seeing possibility, right?
Yeah, I really think those two travel in tandem. If
Yes, they
you're
do.
curious, you're going to automatically invite compassion
Hmm.
into the equation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that so much. So spot on with everything you're saying. I love where you're going with that. And that not being afraid of emotions, I think, gets you further faster than
Oh,
anything
yes.
else because feelings aren't facts, they're just feelings. And so
Yeah.
we have the opportunity to examine them all
Yeah.
the time. And I love what you were saying about basically leaning into change instead of let's just change everything all at once from black to floral. What if we
Hmm.
just lean in slightly because our brain is a copy and paste machine and it's
Hmm.
very
Right.
comfortable in the familiar. Your
Right.
brain would rather keep you in a familiar hell than an
Yes.
unfamiliar heaven.
Yeah.
So it's going, if you go in and let's say you're coming to us trying to get off ultra processed foods, we're not going to say, I want you to go in and I want you to switch everything out of your cabinet and buy all new food and bring it in. And from today, you're never going to have another potato chip or Oreo cookie till the day you die. I mean, people would run for the hills. And
Yeah.
so a crowding out approach with just adding in instead of taking away
Hmm.
sometimes is a little more comfortable. And we're going back to safety, right?
Hmm.
We can lean in to those things and still feel safe without the overwhelm.
Hmm.
And you can get a lot further down the road. So I love all
Yeah.
of those points that you're making.
Yeah. I do love the approach of shifting, of becoming. I truly believe in the idea that by small and simple things are great things brought to pass,
Agree.
and that line upon line growth. And
Hmm.
so I think it's a powerful way to shift and become this better version of yourself.
Yeah, that leads us really perfectly into a little bit about faith and spirituality. And what are some of your thoughts around why those are so essential to deep healing? Not just mindset or habit work alone, but that level of, again, I'm not telling anybody you have to start going to church every Sunday from here on out. I'm talking about that inner vessel where you can turn to for peace. Why do
Yeah.
you think that's an essential component of really change and healing and elevation and reaching the potential of who you really want to be?
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes down to it, it's us being able to believe in something beyond ourselves because we know our limitations. We know our shortcomings. And, studies show that people who believe in something bigger than themselves are able to anchor into that belief in spirituality and something bigger than yourself becomes that anchoring point, which becomes that sense of safety when you're not able to establish it yourself. So it really becomes this powerful way of feeling that level of safety so that you can access your higher level of thinking, and going back all the way around to purpose creates a sense of purpose for yourself and a reason to show up for yourself and to make these changes that we're talking about. So I absolutely love that you make it a part of your program because I think there would be a huge hole if you didn't have that
Yeah,
piece.
I agree. We really were, we wanted to make extra sure that we have a holistic approach to recovery
Mhm.
because it's not just about food. It's really
Yeah.
that is a small component of why people are addicted. And think about the obesity rates. 70% of people are overweight or obese. So we have an epidemic on our hands. It's huge. Look
Right.
around. Our
Right.
grocery stores are like 80% processed food. If
Right.
the whole middle section of the grocery store is processed food.
Right.
So we're in a world of hurt right now. And if something doesn't change, we're going to have a medical crisis on our hands. We won't be able to keep up. But
Right.
bring it back to that faith component, don't you think that's part of calming the nervous system as well and
Oh,
rebuilding trust
yes.
within ourselves? Being able
Absolutely.
to use that, especially for women that carry shame, like around their food or their bodies. So
Mhm.
it also encompasses compassion
Yes.
too. Do you want
Yeah.
to say anything about that?
Yeah, it also makes me think of connection because as human beings, we are wired for connection. And the
Yes.
more we feel connected to a higher power, to others, and even to ourselves, the more regulated our nervous system is. And so that becomes another powerful piece to
Hmm.
feel that connection, right? And
Amen.
when you talk about shame and that connection to, spirituality is something bigger than yourself. I think one of the most powerful things anyone can choose to believe is that their worth is just by the fact that you are a human being, your worth is infinite, that there is nothing you can do or not do to add to something that is already infinite.
Yeah.
And to understand that so that you can let go of that shame. The thing about shame is it never serves us. It doesn't help us. And yet we feel like it's this tool to get us to, hate ourselves better, but it just keeps us stuck. It just
Yeah.
makes us spiral.
Yeah. No one has ever hated themselves into recovery. Can I say
Nope.
that?
Nope.
You
Never.
can try. A lot of people have tried over and over again. It's just never worked.
Yeah. And so
And,
being able to let go of that.
yeah. And I also think connection is the opposite of addiction, too. Just like you're
Mhm.
saying, we were wired for connection. And
Yes.
when we have connection, it just makes our life more filled with
Yes.
purpose, and we were meant to be connected. And also, I think all of that, the spirituality and all of that ties into making it to where we're not just relying on willpower for change. When
Hmm.
we've got that spiritual component, you're building trust in
Right.
something bigger than yourself, that I also think is an extra layer of comfort, an extra layer of strength, extra layer
Right.
of motivation
Right.
to become who we want to become.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talk about protecting patterns. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that means and why you think it's critical for long-term recovery and consistency?
Yeah, protective patterns. I call it that because I love the compassionate approach and the awareness and the understanding approach to our human wiring. So protective patterns include the nervous system. It's there
Hmm.
to protect us, to keep us safe. It also includes something known as the motivational triad, which is human tendency to avoid pain, to seek pleasure, and to
Yeah.
conserve energy. All
Hmm.
those three motivations, human instincts, keep us alive. It keeps us surviving. And so
Yeah.
that's the role of those protective patterns, is to keep us alive. But the thing is, we were never meant to solely live by those protective patterns. We're meant to, we're human beings with these wonderful brains that have a higher level of thinking, that have capacity to create and become and to grow and all of these wonderful things. And so if we remain just living by protected patterns, then we don't live up to our potential. And so, but it's important to understand those protective patterns and why they're there, and to even allow them. They do serve a purpose, but we just don't want to solely live by protective patterns. And so when it comes to, when I think about, okay, what's the connection between protective patterns and addiction recovery? It's understanding, like, where did I feel unsafe? Why did I turn to food? What was I, trying to avoid or create for myself? Everything we do has to do with a feeling we want to feel, whether that's, you know, acceptance or love or contentment, whatever. We're all, whatever you do, you can think about anything you've ever done and you can tie it to a feeling you wanted to feel as a result of
Hmm.
that. And so I
Oh,
think when you begin to understand that and you begin to have awareness, again, awareness just opens up the door for you to be able to then understand it, accept it, give compassion, and then be curious. How do I want to change? Do I want to stay here? Maybe I don't want to stay here. Maybe I want to do something different and create something more.
yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up about I'm going to say this wrong, but basically, there's a feeling that we want to feel. What was the one liner?
Yeah,
How did you?
everything that we do is because we want to feel a certain
Yes.
way.
Yeah, everything. And so for people that are suffering from ultra processed food use disorder, generally they want to feel calm. They want to feel
Mhm.
peace. They're looking for
Mhm.
that. And the only the low-hanging fruit, haha,
Mhm.
is just to reach for whatever that dopaminergic
Yeah.
food that's going to give that instant sense of pleasure and calm and
Yeah.
numbing and peace and feel
Yeah.
good. Unfortunately, it doesn't last, and then you've got a bigger
Mhm.
problem on your hands
Yeah. Or you have to
afterwards.
keep doing it more and more to keep feeling that same
Right.
way, right?
And then unfortunately, that gets down regulated and it does take more and more. And then
Yeah.
before you know it, you're in a mess because you've totally down regulated those reward pathways. And then you're just trying to
Right.
feel normal. You
Right.
just need so
Right.
much just to even feel normal because you're never going to feel as good as that first hit felt, right? So
Right.
that's a
Right.
problem with dependence in any substance. So
Right.
let's shift gears a little bit. If you're comfortable, are you okay with talking about what happened to you at 29 and that life-altering accident that you had? You want to talk
Yes.
about how that changed your relationship with your body, your faith, yourself?
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
there's power in pulling blessings out of trials, and I didn't know if you're to that point, but if you
Mhm.
are comfortable sharing, I think you've got a powerful message that
Yeah.
people
Thank you.
would
I'm
like to
happy to
hear.
share. I'm happy to share. Um, so the number 29 that I had given you was actually it's been 29 years since my car accident. So I was 17 at the
Oh,
time. So I
oh,
was a
wow.
senior in high school when it happened, and we were just traveling to a STEM conference my senior year of high school, and we were traveling late at night, and we hit a horse that was lying in the middle of the road, and
Oh,
uh,
gosh.
caused a terrible accident that injured my left leg severely to the point that I didn't walk for 6 weeks, but also, and more significantly, took my left arm. So by the time the car accident was over, it had already been fully amputated and wasn't able to be saved or fixed or corrected. So I've lived the past 29 years and having my 7 children and continuing on without having the use of my arm. And I think it's a really interesting question to ask about, relationship with body. And,
Yeah.
when something so traumatic happens, and in all
Yeah.
honesty, the greatest feeling that I have is gratitude, honestly. Um, Talking about the injury to my leg, there was a point where they thought they might need to take my leg as well because it was so injured. And just it still causes me trouble to this day. I take care of it, but it's always sore or aching, or half the time I have a somewhat of a limp. And but I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the things that I still am able to do. I'm grateful that even though my extremities have difficulty, the core of my body is healthy. I was able to carry all 7 of my children with no problems. And I just have much to be grateful for, as far as what I'm still able to do. And it's interesting how your mindset changes. I remember, oh, it's probably as early as 5 years ago, I had the mentality that would tease my husband, one day I'm going to be in a wheelchair, so be ready for that. You're going to be pushing me around. And now I have a different mentality where it's I'm going to take care of my body, and I'm going to be as healthy and as functioning as I possibly can. And yes, I have to deal with the repercussions of this terrible injury, but I am going to take care of it and help it function to the best of its ability. And so there is just a great sense of gratitude, for for life in general, and for the things that I am able to do.
Wow. You are a bright, shining star. That I've got a lump in my throat, actually. I need to take a breath. That story is so beautiful because I was thinking back to being a 17-year-old girl, and I can't imagine that you were in the place you're in now. At that time, was it this level of gratitude that you have? Was it kind of like Was it a light switch or was it a dimmer switch? Did it happen all at once? Did you decide then, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm going to go on and do all these things? Or was it a slow roll coming out of there? Were there big lessons you had to learn to get to this mental space where you are now?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when we talk about that anchoring of spirituality, I can
Oh, yeah.
easily say that that was the thing that got me through that initial part of coming to grips
Yeah.
with what my new situation in life was. And I definitely I'll be 100% honest and say I did have those hard times. I mean, I literally
Sure.
remember, lying in bed and just thinking, oh, I just don't feel beautiful anymore. Or,
Yes.
being on a college campus for the first time and smiling at a boy
Totally.
that was passing by
Right.
and him kind of turning the other direction and thinking, oh, he's not going to smile back at me because I have one arm. I had these
Uh-huh.
moments,
Had to be. Had
these
to.
conversations in my own head, and I needed to navigate some of those, but truly my faith. And then another thing I attribute how well I've been able to handle it is just this innate desire to create. It's Creativity is something that has always been a part of my life, and it showed up in fun little ways as a youth, whether it was crocheting or scrapbooking or whatever. I did photography. I was the head photographer of the yearbook at the time I got into my car accident.
Wow.
But being able to have that space of healing, even some time where I needed to pause and say, I don't really know what I'm capable of, but then opening up to possibility. What can I still do? And it's interesting to remember my mindset before. And in fact, I have a video that we were going to use in a legal case of my story, and that's neither here or there. But only to say that I heard myself say, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do that. And now looking at back at that video, I can do everything that I said I couldn't do at the time.
Oh,
And so being able to grow into this belief that I can figure it out. And someone once asked me, how often I have to navigate life with one arm and, figuring things out. And I told them literally every day. And when I
yeah.
said that, I kind of checked myself and was like, is that really true? And
Hmm.
from that time on, I would kind of have this awareness of every time I have to navigate how to do something. And it literally is every day. It truly is. But it also creates this ability to be creative in life and to say, how am I going to make it happen? And so when you
Hmm.
ask me about blessings that I've gleaned from this tragedy in life, it is that ability to say, are you going to choose to stop here or are you going to choose to figure it out? And I've learned how to lean into that mindset and belief that I can figure it out. It might not be
Yeah.
the prettiest way, it might not be so graceful, but I'm going to do it. So there are blessings to glean.
Is it a fair statement to say that you wouldn't be who you are today or accomplished what you've accomplished today without that trial in your life?
Yeah, 100%. It's made me who I am for sure. And
I
so
agree with that.
I've toyed with the idea, if you could go back and change things, would you? And
Ooh.
it's a really hard, I'm
Yeah.
glad I don't have to actually answer it and
I'm
make it
waiting.
carry it out.
Yeah, I was waiting to hear what the answer to that one is.
But I mean, what flashes before my mind is just the man that I married and what I know that he knows about me and feels about me and the love that my children have for me and just so many things flash before my eyes that I would not want to give up because it has been such a blessing. And we talk about emotions and life and hardships, and there's always this balance between the law of opposition. And, it's okay that we sometimes feel sadness because then we're able to feel the opposite, right?
Right.
And so I think when we talk about struggles or trials that happen in our life, we can expect goodness to be mirrored if we look for it, if we
I agree.
seek for it, if we create it. Um, and so for that reason alone, I might, like I said, I'm glad I don't actually have to make that decision.
Yeah. No, I think you really learn how to sink or swim. You
Yeah,
find out what you're made of. You find out what you're even capable of that you never would have even remotely given yourself credit for. And
right.
I love what the thought around, I know I can figure things out.
Mhm.
That right there is one of the greatest gifts I think we would ever have is the confidence to know I don't
Right.
know what's going to come at me, but
Yeah.
whatever it is, whether
Yeah.
it's through my spirituality, whether it's just through my purpose, whether it's my drive, whether it's my clean, healthy body, because I've been living in a way that makes me capable, I
Yeah.
can figure out whatever life throws at me. And
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I'm in the best position possible to make the next right move.
Right. And do you hear how coming from that mindset establishes a level of safety? Because uncertainty feels unsafe.
Oh, it's
And so
scary. It's terrifying.
feel if you feel like I can figure it out, it establishes that safety, allows your higher level of thinking to come stay online, you to be able to show up as that intentional best version of yourself because you truly believe whatever comes my way, whether it's the connections I've created, the way in which I've taken care of my body, the mindset I've developed, you're going to get through whatever the next hurdle is. And you
Yeah.
know that it will just make you stronger as well.
Yeah. And even if you had a momentary lapse of, I don't know what I'm going to do here,
We do
I,
that.
I think that's normal. That's okay. But you have
100%.
that innate ability to answer back
Hmm.
and say, I know you feel like that right now. Let's just give
Right.
it a minute.
Right.
Historically, we figured everything else out, so that would lead me to believe we can figure this out
Right.
too. Let's
Right.
just take a breath, even if we have to step away from it for a minute and then
Right.
come back to it. But we build this self-trust because that's the patterns that have been developed within
Mhm.
us. And so we've got that history to fall back on to reassure ourselves it's all going to be okay. And then it goes back to the safety
Yeah.
element too, to calm ourselves down.
Yeah. And the goal in the things that we teach, the things that I teach, isn't to make us robotic and perfect and not ever falter. It's to equip us to be able to handle when we do falter because we are human. And so being
Yeah.
able to bounce back quicker, easier, rather than stay stuck in the mishap, that becomes a powerful way.
I love that. If someone is in a position right now where they feel overwhelmed or discouraged in life, or if they're trying to do recovery or settle
Mhm.
their nervous system,
Mhm.
what's one intentional, because we like that word intentional, step they can take towards moving forward with like grace and compassion? Where would they start to feel
Yeah.
stronger in that place so it's easier to make change?
Yeah, I really do believe it does begin with the nervous system and creating that sense of steadiness and calm. And when I teach about the nervous system, I teach something called the daily ground. And it's an acronym for just daily habits or practices that you can do to regulate your nervous system. And it's GROUND. And these are going to overlap with the things that you teach. So G stands for get sleep, making sure
Mhm.
you're getting good quality as well as quantity and
Huge.
all of that. Okay. And then R is rhythms and routines, being able to have that early morning sunshine, the first hour of the day, getting that in your eyes so it can set your circadian rhythm and give you that little boost of energy, that healthy, boost that says it's time to go. And then O stands for oneness. That's that connection piece to God, self, and others or higher power, whatever that might be. just that connection, establishing connection throughout the day. And then U stands for uppercut. That's my little bit of a stretch for movement, right? So
Oh, I like that.
there's another overlap with what you teach.
Hmm.
N stands for nurture. That's the food piece. That's nourishing your body as well as your spirit. And then the D stands for de-stress as well as adding some healthy stress. So incorporating practices that you can do that helps you de-stress, but also incorporating intentionally things that stretch you just a little bit so that you can establish that safety for yourself. Your body can learn that it's okay to be uncomfortable. We don't always have to be in comfort, seeking pleasure, conserving energy. It's like it's safe to put myself out there. It's safe to do hard things. It's safe to stretch myself. And so the more that we do these foundational practices daily, the more grounded we'll become, the larger our capacity to handle the stresses of life. And so that daily ground really, if anybody's like, where do I start? I'm like, start with the daily ground. That's where it all begins.
Yeah. And, because people want to build up that self-trust. And it sounds like what you just shared is the place to start with that building up that self-trust pattern.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
leaning into that. Um, we have a couple listener questions. Do you have
Yeah, let's
time
do it.
to take a couple
Yeah.
of those? The first one is, I know what to eat, but I still reach for food when I'm stressed or overwhelmed. How do I interrupt that pattern without shame?
Yeah. Well, I think it's creating that space, right? If we can just, even if it's just to lengthen the space between reaction and response. And the more that you're able to create that awareness, just even just to pause and say, okay, what's going on here? What am I feeling? Why am I reaching for this? Just being able to create a little bit of space and curiosity. And if you
Hmm.
add that compassion, shame cannot be there.
Yeah, it
And
can't
so,
live.
yeah,
Hmm.
finding those ways to create space, get curious, and offer yourself compassion. See
Yeah,
what that
I
looks
love that.
like.
I love that. Here's another one that I thought was good. How do I tell the difference between giving myself grace and avoiding responsibility for change?
Yeah,
So
that's
we can maybe overdo it on the grace part if
yeah.
it's really sometimes can turn into a negative.
Yeah. Well, when I teach about offering yourself compassion, sometimes I'll have women resist because they feel like compassion is more permissiveness. And it absolutely is not. When I think about compassion, I think of it being to be seen and known and understood, those protective patterns. We understand why we're doing what we're doing, and 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 seen and understood, and a space held for us to such a degree that we cannot help but change. Because anytime there is that level of love and understanding, you cannot stay there. There's something within you that sparks that, and to me, that's what grace really is that enabling strength. It's that love and acceptance for what is to such a degree that you actually shift and change, not by coercion or force, but by pure desire. And
Hmm.
so to understand that it isn't permissiveness is, and just allowing yourself, you're not opening the door for change. You're just giving yourself a pass. So I think it's really understanding, what does it really look like to give myself compassion? What does that
Hmm.
really mean?
Hmm. I love that. Next one. What if my faith feels weak or distant right now? Can healing still happen?
Yes, well, that's the beautiful part of, having different, cornerstones or different areas. Even within the daily ground, I say, if I'm talking to a young mom and she's like, I just can't get sleep right now. And I talk to her about, oh, that's what's great about having other areas that can be
Hmm.
strengthened.
I
And,
like that.
when it comes to, feeling like your spirituality is not where you want it to be, or it feels strained or small. Again, just that same idea of growing it little by little, maybe checking in. What about it feels, strained or unsafe? How can you establish safety there so that it can grow and become that source of strength that you desire? And again, there comes the piece of compassion and understanding. There's a reason why people feel like they don't want to turn to that, or that it's been strained or harmed in it in some way. And so understanding that and having it make sense, be feeling validated and seen for your experience, so that you can feel
Mhm.
safe enough to say, okay, I've been seen and heard.
Mhm.
It feels safe to bring that again back into my life. What does that
Yeah.
look like? Hear the curiosity coming in. What would that look
Mhm.
like for me? What feels like
Mhm.
the next right step as we
Mhm.
grow and progress and shift and incorporate it into our lives more fully?
Oh, I love that. And here's the last one, just in time. How do I stay motivated when progress feels slow and life keeps throwing challenges my way?
Yeah. Just normalizing it and remembering everyone goes through that same situation. That's why I think communities become so valuable, like the one that you've created, Paige. Just being a part of those communities helps you understand that you're not alone, that it is a part of the process. And I think what becomes so important is the story you tell yourself about what's happening. If
Yeah.
you feel like you have a
Yes.
mishap, if you feel like you're in a lull, or you're struggling, what are you going to make that mean? What is the story you're going to tell yourself about that? If you say things like, why try? I'm not capable. It's never going to work. That's going to send you on that downward spiral.
Hmm.
Even if you just simply shift to, I'm struggling and it's okay. It makes
Yeah.
sense that I am. It creates enough space, again, that you can respond instead of just react to
Yeah.
to whatever's kind of derailing you in the time. So
Yeah.
I would check in with the store, what you're making that mean, where
Hmm.
you're at in your
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Beautiful. Perfect way to end right on time with the great
Mhm.
message. Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is at the Michele Reyes. Michelle is spelled with one L. So it's Michele Reyes. And I have, helps there. I also have a freebie that you can connect with called Creating Calm. And there's a link there for you to find it just in the bio.
Wonderful. I appreciate your time so much. This has been a great conversation. Very, very helpful, very informative. That hour just absolutely flew by. So, thank you so much for your time. And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. And our book, Real Food Recovery: If Food Isn't the Answer, What's the Question, is out on Amazon today. Until next time, see you later, guys. Bye bye.
See ya.